All right. Y'all, we are live at the 2022 Nash County Public Schools School Board Candidates Forum. And so let's give it up with a hand clap. So those who are joining us online, I already see that some people are tuning in. Go ahead and share this video. Let people know that the discussion is about to begin. So this board forum is just an outcome of families in the community wanting to know what exactly those who are running for school board think about the issues the school board deals with, the motivation behind their reasons why they want to run for school board, and to help educate and empower people to make good decisions during voting season, okay? And so we know that election day is coming up, but early voting has already started. And so I encourage you, if you are streaming, to make sure that you make your plan to vote. But it is also can be really difficult to vote when you don't know the people for whom you're voting. And it is very easy, even though everyone here on the panel is from our community, you may not know them personally, and so you may not know all of their motivations, you may not fully understand their character or their perspective on things. And so this forum's purpose is to educate you so that when you do go to that voting poll, you'll have a little more power, a little more information to make a decision on who you may want to represent you. Okay, and so we are going to open up, this is for the Nash County Public Schools School Board. We're going to open up our panel discussion with simple introductions so you'll know the people who are here. There are some who could not make it today, and so I'll give a little intro about who they are after all of our other folks introduce themselves. But I'm Kyle Johnson. I'm hosting this. I want to put this out there that this is not, to be very clear, this is not a Nash County Public Schools mandated or connected event, okay? This is an event that as a parent, I saw that there was a need and other parents saw there was a need, and so we just asked the candidates to come, okay? So this is a community-based event, and the candidates were so kind and so awesome, appreciate y'all, to say yes, all right? And so they want to talk to y'all, so I'm gonna pass it over, and so they're gonna introduce themselves to you. I encourage you, those who are tuning in, go ahead and jot down notes as they're talking. We have already received some questions that have been submitted in advance, but we might be able to answer some questions at the end. And so as they're speaking and talking, go ahead, feel free to put into the chat, jot it down at home so that they might possibly be addressed at the end of the panel, okay? And so I will now turn it over to our first candidate. And so by all means, please introduce yourself to the people.
Good evening, I am Zach Gray. I'm a native of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, born and raised here. Product of the, at that time, Rocky Mount City Schools. Graduated from Rocky Mount Senior High, went to Fayetteville State University and received a Bachelor of Science degree in Social Science Education. Have over 17 years of experience in education. Worked at the State University of New York in Stony Brook, New York, Fayetteville State University, and at Parker Middle School here in our city. Lover of youth. I serve as advisor to our youth ministry at our church, also a deacon. Very active in the community. Volunteer with Nash County School System through our CAIS program, Communities in Schools program, and a strong advocate for youth and want them to receive the best possible education they can here from the Nash County Public School System.
Good evening. I'm Thomas Ray Green. I'm a native of Rocky Mount. I want to take this opportunity to thank Pastor Cal and Word Tabernacle for allowing us to come and to share our views. I think that this is so awesome that we get an opportunity to let our community know exactly where we stand. As I said, I am a product of Rocky Mount, a graduate of Rocky Mount Senior High. I left here, went to North Carolina Central University, and I've had a 10-year stint with the Marine Corps. I pastor here in the city. I have a heart and passion for people, and my platform is very simple. We got to get back to putting children first, putting our children's education above politics, above our egos or our pride, and ask the question, what's best for the children?
Good evening. My name's Lank Dunton. I am the District 6 school board representative for the Nash County Public School Board, running for re-election. For those of y'all watching at home, District 6 runs kind of from the corner of Winstead and Hawthorne, southwest from there. It goes through the Oak Level area of Rocky Mount. It goes out 97 towards the airport, out kind of south of the reservoir. It's a pretty long and winding district. I know a lot of folks don't know what school district they're in until they show up on the polls and see the names on their ballots. So if you're in that area, I've represented you for the last 4 years. I jumped into this 4 years ago because as a businessman, I've been a commercial lender in Rocky Mount for about 17 years. And anytime a business looked at our area and said, you don't have a trainable workforce, you don't have people that can step right into jobs. And, we've got 15,000 kids in the school system, and everyone should have a chance to go to college, but some are going into technical trades. Some have the ability to come right out and make great wages. And I saw that need in the school system, and in 4 years, you get in there and you realize the need's a lot greater. I mean, we've gone through a lot of things in the last 4 years, and we're looking on the horizon at a great deal more. The biggest one being getting us out of low performing, but also looking ahead at what is possible demerger for the county lines. So right now, I think having some continuity on our board, having people that have been in these conversations for the last 4 years and going to be able to be part of those going forward is going to be critical. So it's an absolute honor to serve. I appreciate the time to come and speak tonight, and I look forward to some wonderful questions and some conversation.
Good evening. I too would share the sentiments of the panelists this evening in celebrating and appreciating Word Tabernacle Church and Pastor Cowell and his team of staff who has thought it not robbery that we be here and share our personal views as to why we are candidates. Once again, I am Xavier Harrison, and I am a candidate for the District 4 School Board of the Nash County Public Schools. I share with Lank in describing my district because it is some funny lines. And I say that to say that District 4 encompasses the most of Nashville, Momeyer, and what I refer to as the top end of Spring Hope, which is simply 581 back this way towards Momeyer and Nashville. Then we take off and go down Highway 58, leaving Nashville, and go out towards Sandy Cross, but not over to Cooper's School. My platform is simple, children first. And when Pastor Green and I was had some time to share, I said, we must have both heard from God. Amen, somebody. Simply put, because my platform simply says children first, and what that means is, one, that we must look at the top priorities in a threefold manner, which says students' safety, one. 2, teacher retention and teacher recruitment, where we make sure that we not only retain and recruit the best and the brightest, but then we pay them a living wage so that they can afford to put roots down in the area, have families pay into our economy, and shop here in this area. And 3, we want to make sure that all students have the skills and that they are poised and positioned to either enter college or military or into the workforce with indispensable skills that are undeniable. And so here's my thing. Everybody may not be college ready. Everybody, that may not be their thing, but let's make sure everybody has something that they can do. Finally, I say this to you. I'm running to represent all children. Simply put, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter your zip code. We want the very best because I am a parent, I am a husband, I'm a father, I am a former educator, I am a youth pastor, and I am a proud Northern Nash Fighting Knight.
Go Knights.
I'm a Northern Nash person too, so that's why I'm laughing at all of this. Good evening, everybody. My name is Betty Nixon Jones, and I was trying not to be the only female on the panel, but we have one coming, thank goodness. I am the candidate for the Nash County School Board, but I'm also in District 4, and Xavier told you all the wonderful places that you can go in our district. For 40 years, I have served as a public school educator in North Carolina. I have been honored to teach elementary children. I have taught middle school children and high school children. And my high school children, most of those were at Northern Nash. I also have taught English at 2 local community colleges. In addition, I have served as a counselor, a testing coordinator, a reading specialist, an administrator, and I've also been a curriculum and instructional specialist. After I retired with the Nash County Public Schools, I worked for 8 years as a community educational outreach specialist for North Carolina State University and was responsible for managing the budget, which is extremely important in this position. And of course, one of the schools that I worked, or one of the counties that I worked with a lot was Nash County. One of my most important responsibilities during this time with everything that was going on was recruiting qualified teachers for our regions, and that included 4 other counties besides Nash County. I really want to thank, thank you. I really want to thank all of you for allowing me to be here tonight, and I do promise all of you that if I'm elected, you will have someone on the board who is truly committed to the success of our children in Nash County. Another reason that I'm here, and that's really important to me and very important to all of you as parents, is I have grandchildren in the school system. So I want to thank you, and I look forward to seeing all of you at the polls.
Good evening. I'm David Worsley. I'm running for District 8 School Board. I am not a Rocky Mount native. I'm originally from Tarboro, graduated from Tarboro High, so I am a Viking with pride. I say that. But I have been in Rocky Mount for the past 26 years. And I tell you, I'm running for the school board because, one, I have 2 kids that's in this school system, and I want the best for my kids, and those kids include your kids as well. So whatever I strive for my kids, I want the same thing for your children as well. And I want you to understand my heart, because I'm in this community, or the community that I'm running for, every day. And I see the disparities in this community, and that bothers my spirit. And I'm gonna tell you a quick story by the way of the fact that I'm a Nash County probation officer, and I've been so employed for the past 20 years. But when I first started in probation and parole, I met a young lady, and she came through our office, had got a charge, but more than that, she could not read but had a high school diploma. That was so disturbing to me, and that has stuck with me for the past 20 years. And so for that person and for any other kids that's going through the school system, that is not what I want for your future. I want the best for your kids as well as mine. So my platform is getting back to the basics. Simply means we have to start with respect, or respect for our students, respect for our teachers, respect for our administration. And we have to encourage this from the start at home. This has to start at home. And we have to encourage our kids to practice this at school. Now, we've all heard all of the discipline problems and all the things that go on at school and so forth. But if we simply encourage this respect, we can curb some of this behavior. Last thing, and I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it at the end. I want you to vote. Whether you vote for me or vote for anybody else, I want you to vote. This is your right. Vote. Take advantage of your vote. Because believe it or not, you can say it don't matter, but it does. All these people are examples of why it matters. So please vote. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Y'all are awesome. Thank you. All right, thank you. So that was a quick glimpse into some of the candidates. And so for those who could not be here tonight, I did want to give you all an explanation. So Mike Clanton, we could not find his contact information. Honestly, we were searching and searching, and we found him on social media, but not sure if he ever got the communications. Chris Bissett has not responded, and LaShonda Washington is coming, but her daughter is being inducted to the National Honor Society, so she says she might be coming a little bit late because, and Kathy Hawk declined the invitation because she said that she wanted to utilize different methods in order to engage with her constituents. And so I do know that we did have some struggles with emails going to the spam folder, and so there were follow-up emails and individual emails and phone calls. And so those who might not have been able to respond, that might be the reason why they were not here. But they are still, of course, on the ballot. And so make sure that if you do want to inquire about their platforms and what they're running for, to reach out to them if you can, okay? Now, so quick question, y'all. I know that some of you in your introduction also shared some of your platform and your motivation. And so by all means, if you feel like you've answered this question, feel free to say, just pass on over me. But what is your motivation to run for school board, and what is your platform to fulfill that motivation, to make sure that motivation, the reason you're running, actually comes to be, okay? And we're gonna start here, we'll just go all the way around. It helps out that way with the media.
Success for all students through higher expectations. Higher expectation of students, higher expectations of parents, higher expectations of teachers and staff members, higher expectations of the administrators, and higher expectations of the community. Our students deserve more. Our students deserve to receive a quality education here in the Nash County Public School System. They deserve to receive an education that will allow them to graduate, being able to read, being able to enter the workforce, the military, or to continue their education at a 2-year or 4-year institution. And we need to make sure that they are prepared to do that.
My passion for running, and I don't know if I said this earlier, so I do want to say this now. I am a candidate for District 6 for Nash County School Board. But my passion is to get back to putting our children first, above politics, above our egos, above our pride. And let's just look at what our children need in terms of helping them to grow and to get the best education that they can, to be able to move from school to college or to military or to the workforce, community college, whatever their desire is, but letting them know that the sky is the limit. There are no walls when it comes to what they can do or become. And we have to encourage our children in that light by setting an example for them that you can do it. It's all up to you. It doesn't matter what your background is, what side of the tracks you live on, what your economic status is. I'm a product of born on Jonas Hill and raised in Little Raleigh. And so I know that you can do and become whatever if you got good leadership. And I credit I am where I am today largely because my 7th grade basketball coach, Donald Thomas, who took a whole interest in me and took me on trips to colleges and took me in his home and fed me and allowed me to see that I had choices in life. And that's what I want to see our kids with, choices, and then to make the right choice. I believe we can do better.
I don't know if it's a platform, but it is certainly my reasoning for continuing to want to serve and to want to run. We're going to get an opportunity up here tonight to talk about a lot of things that are wrong with our school system and a lot of things that need to change. But In the short 4 years that I've been able to serve, we are making strides in the right direction, and we've got some big things that are coming up in the next 4 years. And again, I'll use the word continuity of staff as we move through those. We've got 24 schools in our systems, just to give y'all some numbers. This last testing period, 14 met growth, 8 exceeded growth. We've been in a low-performing district for 8 years. I don't think the COVID years counted, so you're probably looking at something closer to 10 years of low performing, and that's just unacceptable. 15 of our schools were low performing, but what I want y'all to get a feel for and understand is we had 8 within 9 points, and we had 4 within 5 points. Within 5 points, we had 4 schools that get us out of low performing as a district, and that, for those that serve, those that go through this every day, those that get in there and fight with the staff and the teachers and the students is incredible. At one point, I wasn't sure we might be even able to get close, but we are knocking on the door of getting this out of low performing. The next thing, we'll get to this question, I think, is a lot of the explosion of population in certain areas of our county. We've been working with our commissioners in the 4 years that I've been there on where we need to go next. Someone had raised a question that we'll get to about the southern end of the county and those schools. We've been having conversation with our commissioners. We've been working on budgets. We've been working on 5, 10-year plans of where this county, where these communities are going to grow and where we're going to need to put schools. Finishing up in Red Oak, hope to be in there by December, January, I think, of this year, and then we're going to take our next steps as to where our students need better schools, where we're overcrowded, where we've got too many kids in one class. And then finally, and this isn't necessarily a positive, but we've got demerger right around the corner. And those are conversations you don't want to kind of jump into midstream. We've been working with Edgecombe County. We've been working with the commissioners on the Nash County side, and neither one of us are anywhere prepared for those next steps, but we've been having those conversations. We've been putting together the think groups, and we're going to be able to deliver to children on both sides of the train tracks in both counties as easy a transition as we look at grandfathering some in, as we look at having to probably redistrict a little bit. But those are things that are in process, and I'd hate for there to be a misstep or a bump in those as we go forward.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent question for us to begin our discussion on this evening. My passion and my motivation is simply, I am a product of the Nash County Public Schools. I am a husband and I am a father. My wife right now is a educator right here in the city of Rocky Mount in the public schools. My children are products of it. My oldest is sitting in the back. He's with us tonight. He's attending Nash Community College. My youngest is sitting on the floor with his earbuds in his ear, doing only what a 13-year-old can do when they're being drugged by their parent. So I am a fierce advocate for children. My background is very interesting. Part of my background is in law enforcement, and the other part is as a former educator. And what I'm simply saying to us this evening is that every now and then, we must rock the boat. Every now and then, waves have to be made. We have to stop looking at the status quo and accepting it. And let me just put a caution pin here as I say all of this about my passion for running. I want to be clear. I am a part of the Down East Partnership for Children. I am a community fellow and a former board member. That just makes me formidable, but let me tell you in short what that really means. One of the things that I like about the Down East Partnership for Children Community Fellows is when you first become a part, the first thing that they suggest or encourage you or admonish you is to say, listen, we all bring a set of skills to the table. So we're not going to necessarily denounce your skills. However, there's an opportunity to hone these skills as we learn to work together as we move forward. What am I simply saying? I did not come to cast doubt on any of our employees or frontline workers of the Nash County Public Schools. They have just come through 2 years of working through COVID, some at home. And so what I'm simply saying is, while everything is not broken, there's still room for improvement. I'm a former Boy Scout and 4-H person, and let me just say this as I pass the mic. in the 4-H, our motto was simple: to make your best better. And what I always encourage my own children, as we are a fierce advocate for, and I want to be for your children in District 4 and all of Nash County, make your best better. And when we began to look at not necessarily what's always wrong, but what's right, we are beginning to say to everyone, let's work together so that we can make our best better.
Something that that I think is extremely important is that I have a lot of experience in working with children, working with adults, and working with people in the community. And probably the most important thing is that I believe strongly that it is our responsibility as school board members to make sure that we are involved, and that's in quotation marks, in the educational processes in our district. I would also like to see an organized, direct process of communication between our school board members and the staff at the schools, and more importantly, our community.
So, just a little bit. I received a class dojo a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago now, and the teacher expressed to me that she will be leaving the school system, and she was a math teacher. She's my son's math teacher. Now we are a couple weeks or a couple months into the school system. My son has got acclimated to her and to the way she's doing things and so forth. And so that sparked the interest in me, not just for my child or for anybody else's child, but we have to keep good teachers. We cannot have a teacher that has 14 or 15 years of experience leaving this school system. She's taking that experience and going right out of the school system. That's not fair to my child. That's not fair to your child. So I want to encourage all teachers that can hear me now. Please stay. We need you. My children need you. Everybody else's children need you as well. So my thing is teacher retention. What that looks like for me is we have to support these teachers financially, socially, spiritually, and we got to let them know that we are there for them. That's important. Student retention. I want the best students in this school system. I don't want students leaving this school system, going to charter schools, private schools, and so forth. Why do I want that? Suppose my child is having a challenge in math. Well, if his other student can support him, or they could get together and do some tutoring, he can support my child. And that's what I want for everybody's child. We need each other. This school system will not work without each other. There's no way. School safety. That's my wheelhouse. I want safety. I want a safe school for your child as well as mine. Somebody put on the questions about metal detectors. I thought about that, and I'm gonna tell you my personal opinion about that. That's getting too far or too close to feeling like you in a prison system or something like that. I don't want my child to feel like that or nobody else's child. I encourage security, but to a point, and I want us to exercise all options when we are thinking about school safety. And that is my platform, and that's what I stand on. That's what I believe. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Good platforms. Good platforms, yes? Yes. All right. And y'all got lots of hearts on social media, so kudos. All right. Now, here's something I've noticed as being a part of the community And this isn't just something that's specific to the school board, but oftentimes the public is ignorant as to what your job actually is. There'll be people who may come to the school board complaining about an issue they need to go to the city of Rocky Mount for, or that they need to go to the county for. And so I just want to, I laid out 5 things that the school board handles, and I tried to put the questions that people had within those 5 parameters, right? So we don't need to call them if there's a fire at our house. Amen. Unless you want to say, hey, there was a fire and I now need to report that my student might be out of school, or I need to contact the social worker. And there's also some things that I know that the public, that families get really frustrated with, that they come to the school board for, that might be a school issue that you, of course, have an oversight with, but you don't necessarily, you can't go into the teacher's classroom and say, change this. And so want to let this be an informative moment while also allowing them to answer some questions that lay into it, okay? And so the first thing that we're focusing on is that the school board is supposed to provide every child with the opportunity to receive a sound basic education during a minimum of 185 days or 1,025 hours of instruction covering at least 9 calendar months. Now, that is something that the school board is supposed to help make sure happens, okay? And so with that, the sound basic education, that is a part of our state constitution, that the state is supposed to provide that, and we know that there was a lawsuit that happened because rural counties were saying, hey, we are not getting a sound basic education. And so there was a lawsuit, and the judge, Leandro, came down with some rulings that said, hey, state government, you have to do the things that you're supposed to do, right? And so we know that, and I say we know, but in reality, this is what happened, that the ruling came down, but that didn't mean that there was an actual change. And so some of the questions that were asked were specifically about the Leandro case. But as this being under your purview with school board to ensure that what funds you have, the resources we have, lead to that happening, what is it that you can do as a person who's running for school board, and this is one of your jobs, if you're actually voted in, what is it that you would do to help ensure that that happens? Now, I asked this question, I'm going to answer all these questions, and if we could get some practical answers, right? So I know that taglines are good, and I know that hopes are good, but what would be your actual plan? Like if you were to campaign and say, this is what we're going to do. And I asked that not as a dig at anyone, but I asked that because oftentimes the families want actual answers. And they also need actual education. And so in your response, you'll be giving what your hopes are and what your plans are, as well as letting them know what's possible and what's not. All right, and I know LaShonda Washington is now in the room, and so when we get down to, I told them that your daughter was over at getting inducted to the National Honor Society, bless God. All right, and so when it gets to you, by all means, feel free to introduce yourself first before you answer a question. And I'll also say this, you do not have to feel you need to answer every question. It is okay if you say, hey, I'm gonna pass on that, that won't say that you're not qualified. It just simply means that you're passing on that question, you might answer the next one, which is perfectly fine. All right, and so we'll just come this way and go on around, and once we get to the end of it, we'll know that anyone who wanted to answer that particular question has now answered it, and we'll move on to the next. So I'll ask the question one more time because I realize I talked a whole lot. Okay? All right, so with the Leandro case, and with the role of the school board to help ensure that the county provides a sound basic education, with you being a governing group that helps make sure that happens, what is your plan to ensure that every child gets a sound basic education within the bounds of your authority? And we're going to start on the other side with Ms. Washington. And that's why you just take that microphone and that'll be yours to use.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome. With respect to addressing and making sure that each child gets a sound education, I believe you have to drill down and be receptive to look through the lens of different cultures, assess the needs of each individual student, and then you can assess and devise your specific plan to addressing what the needs are. Because the needs will vary from school to school, from district to district. So it's important to find out what your individual needs are in your district and then you can begin to look at your resources and address those needs.
I think what you need to do, from my perspective, is implement some kind of survey system that at the beginning of the school year, you can send it out to the families, let them answer some questions about what their expectations are as far as the school system, as far as their neighborhoods and so forth. Also, with regards to what the needs are for their specific child. And we need to also do this at the beginning, also at the end, to assess how we met those standards. So that's important to me, that we know where we are and we know where we need to go. So, and I think we can do that through a survey system and assessments that's done throughout the school year, and gauge how we are doing as a school system as a whole and as for individual children.
I'm going to pass.
There again, I think that particular question is an excellent question, because I think I can say without fear of contradiction that when you speak more specific to the Leandro bill, that bill has different implications depending on what your district is, as well as what the school district is, meaning specifically one of the 11 districts or the Nash County Public School District as a whole. I think I used this illustration a few nights ago at the last forum. So if you look at one of your poorer, more rural counties, such as Vance County, we'll use those just hypothetically, what makes some of us a little uncomfortable about this bill is the fact that they might receive more funding than, say, we would here in Nash County. Now, the interesting thing is we have some marginalized communities. We have some communities that do not have the voice that they should have, nor is there the equitable distribution nor diversity that is needed for proper to be proper, to get necessarily what they need. And so if the question was come down to me, I would be in support of that bill. And I'm going on record as saying that, because I believe that it is our responsibility as a governing body to make sure that every student and every school has what they need, regardless of the zip code or what part of the railroad tracks you live on. Now, my second part to that response would be more specific. As a governing body, there are currently 11 districts on this board. And when we speak of those 11 districts, that means everybody has 11 representatives. And so what I have done, so that we don't get this thing twisted, I have gone out in my process of campaigning and tried to make sure we have put together what's known as a listening tour. You know, we do a lot of talking, and we're good at it, but we don't always do well at listening. And in this listening tour, I have wanted to hear from parents, grandparents, and guardians. I have wanted to hear from teachers and instructional assistants. I've wanted to hear from bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and custodians. I've wanted to hear from people that work in central office or do things that are behind the scene. Why? Because everybody is somebody. Everybody's role is significant if we're really going to say that we're going to put children first. So let me close by saying this. If there are 11 representatives on the board, the governing board, if I'm one individual, I don't care how great a plan or strategy is, until I can find 5 other individuals that will agree or we find commonality, whatever we got is dead on arrival. Because you have to have a majority to move anything forward. Lastly, as a governing body, the body is to review policies and then execute them. Every now and then you have an opportunity to make a revision, but that's what a governing body does, and that's what I would love to serve in District 4.
In regards to Leandra, absolutely. We all know resources and funding for the school district is an absolute challenge. As Ms. Thomas Bullock knows, as Dr. Washington knows, we've got a bucket full of money over here, but teachers are buying paper. It is not easy to move money around and necessarily to do the things that you want to. But and from my understanding of Leandro, to put it into a practical sense, we would be able to go out and hire and attract high-level administration, high-level teachers. We would be able, it's something similar to, I think, what we're doing right now at Parker, where we have gone out and a principal that has performed very well in another school was able to go to Parker and is incented to take that school up to that level, and is also given some additional funding, I think, to attract teachers, to build his team around him or her team around them, and take that school that has traditionally not performed at that level to where it needs to be, giving it that opportunity where it maybe has not always attracted the highest level of principal, the highest level of teacher. And so, I think that would be a wonderful opportunity to tell someone, you have done well here. Here's your challenge to go do well again. Raise up a school that has struggled. Bring people with you that understand what you want to do and how you want to do it, and take that area up as well. What I hate to see, and what we run into often, I think we discussed this the other night, is you've got this money for 2 years, you've put this wonderful program into place, and then the funding's gone. Then we're kind of back to where we are. So is it sustainable? Would we be able to backfill or replace the money once it came into our area? Yes, it would be great to get a shot in the arm. I think we got $6 million in CARES Act money. We replaced every HVC. We replaced every roof, every window within our school system. So funding, yes, I know we're limited in resources, and the ability to attract money, I think, at any level is wonderful. But with Leandro and the ability, I think, to really step up for our schools that maybe need it more than some others, a higher level of staff, a higher level of teachers in the classroom, I think will pay huge dividends, potentially pay huge dividends.
Again, a very good question, and yes, I too would support the Leandro bill, because I believe that all of our children deserve a quality education. Now, what does that look like? I think as a board, we have to do more than just meet on board meeting nights. But I think it's important as board members that we show up in these schools, that we see firsthand what our teachers and administrators see, that we see the challenges that they have, so that we'll understand their needs. And then I also think that there ought to be opportunities for the board to sit down with the teachers and meet with them and hear them. We're all in this. Look, we got to be all in it together. It's going to take all of us. And we got to figure out how we can get quality instructors and pay them. I started out in education, my wife and I left education because we wanted to start a family, and I needed more money. And this was 28 years ago. Now, for the last 20 years, however, I didn't leave the school system. I've been volunteering for over the last 20 years in the school system. A group of us, Sheriff Atkinson, Pastor Keith Moore, Ron Green from the Boys and Girls Club, and myself, took a group of 9th grade boys, and from 4 years, every week, we met with them. I want you to see what commitment looks like. Every week for 4 years, we met with them. And now, some of them are leaders in our community. And these were boys that they were said was at risk and probably wouldn't make it. Now they're in law enforcement, and they're firefighters, and they're doing well because we were committed. And we have to be committed. As a school board, we have to be committed to provide what our teachers and our administrators need for our children, it's a sad thing to know that they are less paid, and then they have to take that little bit and try to provide resources for the kids. I'm telling you again, we can do better.
I too agree that we have to work harder at providing all of our students with the necessary tools that they need to be successful. We have to do an assessment of what the needs are for them to be successful. And ways to do that is working together with the teachers and administrators and with the family members. I think we might need to work on doing more community forums where all of the stakeholders are together throughout the school year so that we can discuss what the needs are in order for our students to be successful, so we know what they are and then work together to meet those needs. Resources, of course, resources. I was thinking today talking with someone about what do we do as a school board to work with the state legislature, because we know a lot of the funding comes from the state of North Carolina for a public school system. We have got to work with our elected officials to increase the amount of funds that are given to our school systems. And we also have to work with other organizations in our community to develop those partnerships. You've put money into the education system here. Hopefully we will give you students who will become employees of your business, who could be the next scientist to develop a cure for cancer or whatever other issues we're facing. But we have got to work together with those forums. I think that'll be a great way to bring the staff, teachers, administrators, parents, students, and community stakeholders together so we can address those needs.
Awesome, thanks y'all. So I'm gonna throw a question out here that you'll be able to answer in 6 different ways because it's technically 6 or 7 different questions. So you get to choose whichever one you wanna answer, okay? Because we only have 13 minutes left, all right? And so have fun with this, okay? So here's the deal. Some of the other roles of the school board: setting educational policy within the limits of its authority and overseeing the implementation of its policies and state educational programs. Some of you have already hit on some of that, which is great. Another one, making decisions about superintendent's personnel recommendations. All right, that's important. You've hit on retention, you've hit on teachers, you've hit on all those things as well. Managing the financial affairs of the district. You know, with Leandro, that's a huge dynamic of that. Where do the funds go? How do we utilize them? But then also with that case, but just the general budget and the finances. And then of course, providing adequate school facilities. So here are all the things that you get to choose what you want to talk about, okay? I do ask that you try to limit it to 1 minute because 13 minutes left with 7 people on the stage. You see how that flows, right? But, so here are some things that were addressed, right? Someone put in that the southern part of the county and rural areas are lacking infrastructure and technological advances. How does a school board plan, and if you were elected, how do you plan on pushing toward making an impact in that area? People have asked questions about recruitment and retention, about how do we actually get teachers. Every school system is struggling to get them. So how do we stand out? How do we close the gap? Every school system is struggling to get bus drivers. Every school system is struggling with all of the personnel. So what do we plan on doing? How does the school board plan on allocating the funds we do have to meet those extreme needs with important personnel? All right. And then another one, like I said, you have lots of options here, okay? With school safety, all right, school safety. Part of that is we talked about with, the metal detectors, but how do we make students and families feel safe? A huge part of the conversation we oftentimes see in the public forum is not specifically an actual issue. Some of it stems from issues, but a lot of it is perception. A lot of it is feeling. And then the public discussion spotlights those feelings, which makes it more difficult to retain and recruit effective people to be in those spaces. So how do you as a school board plan on creating communication that clarifies, communication that informs, and also how do you plan on shifting or helping to shift the culture of our school system? And the culture in actuality, and the culture in perception, and the culture in communication. So those are a lot of options, And so you go for it. Dr. Washington.
Ready. Okay, so I'm going to tackle school safety. I believe that when you have issues, the first thing you should do is acknowledge the issue publicly, ask for input from your stakeholders, then you use that to devise your approach or solution. You must build trust in order to, form the relationships with your community partners, with your parents, students, etc. And those relationships must be sincere. You need to make people feel like you always maintain an open door, that they can talk to you about anything, because if they don't come to you, you never know what the issues are that you need, that are really, going on throughout the district and within the schools. So it's a lot for me, relationship building, and then identification of what you'll need to solve the problem, and then communicating that to your board and garnering support from your other board members. So there are a lot of wheels in motion at all times, and people need to understand that it's just, there's not a one-stop shop fix for any solution or any problems that we deal with. The problems that the school board deal with are complex, and they are important. And they're important to a number of stakeholders, not just one entity or one sector. So going forward, school safety is a big priority. And we do have something coming up, so be listening out, to make everyone feel more safe at school. We did recently just do a survey, and thank everyone who participated in that survey and who gave your honest opinions, because that allows us, to make informed decisions.
As I mentioned from the beginning, school safety is also very important to me. One of the questions, in addition to talking about school safety, was about the communication aspect of it and not the sharing of information. And I understand that the concern about sharing information too quickly, because it could create a worse situation than what needs to be created. So I understand the hesitation of when we receive calls and so forth, because I received a call last week about Rocky Mount High School. It was several hours later, but I understood. Now, of course, I called and talked to my son and made sure he was okay, but I understand the thinking behind that, because we don't want to bombard the school with parents calling or rushing to the school trying to check their child out of school. I get all that part. But for my purposes and for other parents' purposes, communication is a key thing to school safety. And what I want to see happen is a better communication, more of a quicker response. Whether you just send out something to say, look, we have this incident going on, please do not report to the school, we are handling it, or so forth. And it should be an ongoing thing that we are being made aware of what's going on in these schools for our children's safety. And so that's very important to me. And in addition to that school safety aspect of it, I want to talk about or touch on the mental health aspect of going to school and the bullying aspect of that, because all that plays a part in your school safety. Because, fear can prevent you from going to school and so forth. And so to that mental health issue, I want to suggest, whether I'm on the school board or not, a mental health check-in, where whether it be a teacher or whoever it may be, my child can go and express what's going on or how they are feeling at that moment. If there's some concerns, I want it to be able to be expressed to whoever's qualified to hear it, whether it be a counselor or whoever it may be. So I want to encourage this mental health aspect of it and this mental health check-in, whether it be a weekly thing or whatever it may be, or as needed. But we need to encourage this mental health aspect of it, because our children need it, and we need to make them feel like it's supported by the parents as well as the school system. Thank you.
I totally agree with you. That was something that I was going to just mention. the mental health issues that we have in our schools are horrendous. Most of you probably really don't even have a clue of how many children are dealing with mental health issues every single day, and they're not being treated. So many of them are not being treated for lots of reasons, and one is that we do not have enough people, enough staff in our area, enough counselors, enough therapists to support that. I know that from my own dealing with my own grandchildren, and we do not have that in the school system. It's not available to them. As a counselor in school, when I was at Northern Nash, I very rarely, I was a suicide rep. So anytime there was a suicide issue, everybody was sent to me, and I was supposed to handle that situation. And that was absolutely wonderful. But when you're dealing with what is going on in the school system today, it's a totally different thing. It is a totally different animal that we're dealing with. And we know that from all the school shootings. We're all very aware of that. And we know that mental health is a major issue for so many of our children. And that is something that I totally agree with you that we have to do something about. There are lots of things that I have lots of ideas of things that can be done that will help, and that's something that I would really like to work on as a school board member. Parents have talked to me constantly. I work with a therapist, and the things that I work with the students before, or the children before they go to the therapist, and the things that they tell me about their school day, and the things that they tell me about their school, the life that they live as a student in one of our schools, or not just our schools. I mean, I'm not talking about Nash, Rocky Mount, Nash County schools. I'm talking about most of the schools that are in our area are having the same kinds of issues. But that is something that has to be addressed. Is it our problem? Yes, it is our problem. That's the question that I get on a lot of these that you brought up, Kyle. Is this really our issue? Is it really our problem? And would it be as school board members? And yes, it is. It's very important. It's something that I'm hoping that we'll be able to do something about. I have so many parents that have begged and pleaded with me to, go to school and talk to somebody about it. What can I do? I can't do that. Another thing is also that I'm part of the therapist program, so I don't want anybody to know that child is, going to a therapist. So that's one of the big things that it breaks my heart. It really does. And we can't, our kids are not going to do as well in school. All the kids that are having these issues, and I think all of you know this if you have someone at home, and this goes all the way definitely through high school, and it starts at a very early age now. So that's something that I feel very passionate about, and I hope that it's something that we'll work on together as a group.
Let me say this in brevity, and it does not describe my passion. Number one, two points. Number one, real quick, what you get with me is the ability as well as the agility to foster authentic relationships. I think that is going to be critical and important as we move forward, not just with the governing board, but with county commissioners, with the General Assembly, and with whomever that these stakeholders that it must be met. So that's number one. I'm well qualified and trained to build and foster authentic relationships. That's critical. Open line of communication, if you will. And then I leave you with this last part. And I said in the opening part that part of my background was in law enforcement, the other part is in education. And simply put, if children are not taught to read by the end of the 3rd grade, we are more or less budgeting then to build prisons to house them. you know, it's called the pipeline. And so I leave you with this last statement that the former board member who's now no longer with us, Ms. Ann Edge, would always say, we've got to get back and keep the main thing the main thing. All of these questions are wonderful. I've enjoyed discussing them. However, we got to get back and put the focus on children.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I was going to do school safety, but with Dr. Washington sitting on the panel and anyone that knows her passion about that, I knew I would not be the most informed board member, so I'll probably need to move on to something else. One thing I was going to talk about is discipline. I think that came up several times, respect in the classroom. And we get a disciplinary report every so often in a board meeting, and Mrs. Evelyn Bullock, bless her heart, she kept pointing out an inconsistency in those numbers. And she would point it out, and she would point it out. And what became inescapable is that our young black men, while a majority of the population of our schools were being disciplined at a much higher rate than the rest of our student body. So after I'd heard that and wanted to go talk to Dr. Farrow, and I just said, what does Nash County look like versus North Carolina? What does Nash County look like versus the United States? I mean, are we that far out? And the numbers were not where they needed to be. So I went to the schools and sat down and talked with principals, and what you found out pretty quickly, we had no uniform system in dealing with discipline of our students. We had, if you went to school X and did something, you might be after school detention, you went to school Y and did the same thing, you're going home for 3 days. And our students, as we've learned in COVID, have to be in the classroom. They have to be in front of a teacher. There is no making up of that gap once they're not in there. So what we as a board have worked hard at, what we have challenged our superintendent and what he and his staff are doing is creating a strict set of guidelines as far as discipline goes, that regardless of where you are in our county, you are going to be dealt with the same way. You've got to create some accountability there. You've got to take out, unfortunately, in this day and age, some of that gray area that I think we've been operating in too long, and give everyone within our school system a better opportunity together, a better opportunity at education.
Realizing time is far spent, I just want to close with this, that I realize that while we are not doing everything wrong, there are some things we're doing right. But I am a big component of change. And if it ain't working, let's change it. Let's not be afraid to change. Let's not be afraid to try something different, especially when it comes to our children's safety. I shared this the last time we were together, and that was that one of the biggest things that blessed me was to see a fraternity lined up outside the school while the kids made entry into the school. I thought that was so awesome. Awesome. And I'm sure it made those kids feel good and also encouraged them to have a better day. So what I'm saying is that we got to get back to bridging the gap between our community and schools. What would it look like if we had the ministers and the pastors of this area lined up outside the school, and when our kids walked into the school, they saw their spiritual leader on the way in? Oh God, how would that make their day different? How would it? Think about it. My pastor, my minister, my spiritual leader high-fived me on the way in the building. I think it would make all the difference. So we got to get back to bridging that gap between community and school. We got to get back, and I said this and I'll say it again tonight, setting our pride aside, checking our egos at the door, rolling up our sleeves, and let's go to work asking the question, what about the children?
These responses are kind of tough to follow up as the last person speaking, but I want to put my focus on getting parents involved in your children's education. I know it's a challenge for many of you all to make it to school board meetings. I encourage you to do that if you can. And I hope that members of the school board will be open to providing other opportunities for parents to meet with them to discuss their issues, their concerns, and their thoughts on how we can improve education for all students in our school system. I want parents to be more involved because we're educating your children. We want them to be successful. If your children are successful, you are successful as well. I want to encourage parents to get involved with the educational process. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Y'all, thank you. Thank y'all so much. Yes, they deserve a clap. And for y'all on social media, go ahead and put all the heart emojis and whatnot, the clapping emojis. I would like to, again, just reinforce, I appreciate the fact that you all said yes. I appreciate the fact that you came. And I do want to reinforce and remind that we could not get in contact with Mr. Canton, that Mr. Bissett, the communication may have been lost. He didn't respond. Mr. Deans, he had a prior engagement, so he did not see the information about tonight until today. So that's why those three are not present. I want to make sure that's very clear. Ms. Hawk decided to decline the invitation. And so, as I said in the beginning, if not seeing some people doesn't mean that they did not want to be here. And Ms. Hawk also said that she just wanted to use a different method for engaging with her constituents. And so, but I'm so thankful that you all decided to come. I want to also reinforce and just reiterate that tonight's forum was not going to be the solutions for all the things, okay? We have a current school board that is working very hard to find solutions and has been working very hard. We have an entire state, an entire nation that has trying to find solutions. And so we know that even if whoever might be elected, we know that you will not be the magic pill to fix all the things, right? So that's not the pressure we need to put on people. In fact, I both like and sad about this quote, but an elected official told me that I'm literally only here to help, but I have to fight against the people I'm fighting for. And that is a tragedy. And so I'm not an elected official. I do not work for the school board. I don't work for the county. I'm simply a parent who wants to advocate and inform. And I just want to encourage the community to not fight against the people who are fighting for us. Because as Dr. Washington said, everything in the school system is complex. Everything is complex. It is never as simple as hire this person, give a little bit more money. It is a very complex system. And so whether it be people who are currently serving on the school board or those who will be coming in, please give grace to those who are dedicating time to help us out. And so I wanted to just reiterate, but one of the things that I do hope that we take away with tonight is as each person shared, they shared a little bit about the way they think, they shared about how they feel. And so we don't have all the topics the next 4 years will bring for them, but we do have a glimpse into the way they think about them and the way the motivations they have. And so when you do go to the polls understanding that you're going to vote for people who think this way, who feel this way. And I love the passion and the compassion I heard in all of your, all the things you addressed. So thank you. I also encourage and remind you that these candidates and other offices are a part of our community. And so you don't have to wait for a forum to engage with them. Please don't bombard them when they're in the grocery store, but by all means, engage with our neighbors, because our neighbors, they're simply neighbors in our community. Their children are a part of our system. They worked in our system, and so they're here with us. And so engage with them as neighbors and friends. And I also want to implore you as families, as community members, because the school system is not just about, it is about the children, but it's not just comprised of children. The school system is literally here, and it helps our entire community. It produces our workforce. It produces the people who we engage with every single day. It is a place where people with passion can go and work and love the things that they do. And so I just encourage you to respond to the engagement opportunities. And so I know that the school system has sent out things like surveys to get insight. Your responses to those surveys will dictate policy. Please don't ignore it. I encourage you to get plugged into resources and things like the school system is trying to develop a mentoring program. I know there's lots of questions about, students need support, emotional support, social support, safety in schools. Well, a great way to do that is for the community to go into the schools. And so when you see information about volunteering to be a part of the Village Mentoring Program, take that on as an opportunity to engage and to be a part of the change that we want other people to create. And then I also want to encourage you to, on the school board level, on the county level, be engaged. show up to be informed. Don't just show up to complain. Show up to voice. Show up to advocate. Show up to give your opinion. But let's make sure that we're responding and engaging in spaces respectfully. And so the school board should know your name, not just when you have a complaint. The school board should know your name when you're saying, hey, I want to help advocate. I want to be a part of that solution. That does not mean you have to do everything. We know everyone has different lives, and there's reasons why you're not running for school board, all right? But there are ways that you can get plugged in even on your school level. So join your PTO, join your PTA. If it doesn't exist, start one. Show up to curriculum night. I went to curriculum night at Bienvenue Elementary School. Shout out to Bienvenue 4th grade teachers and kindergarten teachers. And they simply broke down the new math, and they taught the parents how to do the new math that all the parents are complaining about. And I was like, this makes so much sense now. And so engaging in those spaces you're invited to will help you understand how to navigate the spaces. And then lastly, I'll say this. You can go to ncpsfamilies.com. That's right, y'all. We have a website. Shout out to the websites, all right? So go to ncpsfamilies.com. When you do that, there's a button right at the top that says, hey, join this team of advocacy. One of the things we're trying to work to do is to create a team of families that can help partner with the school board, with the schools, with the county, with our community to help advocate, to educate, and to inform all of us so we can be lifted up together, because we are in this together, right? On that website, you can also find resources about the school board. You're trying to figure out, well, what district am I a part of? Because these people were amazing. And you might be thinking, oh, I want to vote for that person, but that person is not a part of your district, all right? Think through, be informed, be aware, right? You can, of course, go to our county's website. All the resources are there. But we also attach some of those to our ncpsfamilies.com website as well. And if you have not joined it, go ahead and join the Nash County Public School Families Facebook group so that you can be engaging, get answers, get support, and speak positive and insightful things about how we can move forward together. And so that is our night, and we're going to linger here for a little bit. By all means, if you have questions, feel free to shoot them to ncpsfamilies@gmail.com. That's ncpsfamilies@gmail.com, and I will make sure that I can compile those and hopefully get some insight from our school board members and whatnot.
On behalf of the existing school board members and the candidates, I just want to thank UCal and Word Tabernacle Church for being such a great partner with Nash County Public Schools and hosting this forum. Thank you. We really appreciate your support.
Well, thank you, Dr. Washington. You know, we're here for the community. One of our philosophies, even though I'm coming here as a parent advocate, not necessarily as a member of Word Tabernacle Church, but one of the church's philosophies is that everyone in the community might not belong to the church, but the church belongs to everyone in the community. And it's important for us to understand that community and school partnerships are so important. It helps us thrive as individuals and as a collective. And so I hope that you all have a phenomenal night. Thank you for joining in, and we will hopefully see y'all at the polls.